Hi, I'm Stewart Spinks and welcome to episode 342 of my podcast, Beekeeping Short and Sweet. Well, I'm back after my visit to the Harper Adams University in Shropshire for the annual British Beekeepers Association Spring Convention, and what a great time it was. Details of my trip coming up and also some thoughts about the current development of our colonies at this precise moment. Beekeeping Short and Sweet, a beekeeping podcast for the inquisitive beekeeper with a short attention span. A beekeeper, in fact, just like me. Before we get into today's beekeeping conversation, and in the absence of anyone else supporting my podcast with an advert or two, here's my little self-promotion again. For all of you who haven't yet signed up to my Patreon page, I, together with Steph, have been creating beekeeping content for many years now, and if you're looking for some straightforward, down-to-earth tips and techniques, help and advice, then do take a look at my Patreon page. We have over 1,600 individual beekeeping posts, videos and podcasts filled with useful and timely help and advice. My approach is pragmatic and calm, sometimes entertaining, but always with help and support for beekeepers at the heart of what I do. I keep my videos short and concise wherever possible. No waffle, no flannel, just honest beekeeping advice from years of keeping bees. Take a look and join me for the new 2025 beekeeping season. It'll cost you less than a jar of honey, and you never know, there may be something there that will help you improve your beekeeping. Head over to Google and search for Patreon and the Norfolk Honey Company. Hi everyone, I'm back again after my weekend trip to the British Beekeepers Association Spring Convention for 2025, and what an enjoyable experience it was. I had thought it would be good to record my trip at the time, maybe video my stay, but actually there was so much to do and eventually so little time in between presenting my seminar and then doing my talk that it really wouldn't have shown the full event at its best. So, coming up instead is my brief review, not so much of the event, but of my visit to the event, I guess. First, though, the weather. I've got to include it because it's actually fluctuating quite a bit, and although it is warming up, today being Thursday as I write and record this, the general feel has been cool, and it does still feel quite chilly outside. I think we've had a cold northeasterly breeze blowing, and that's kept the temperatures low across the east of the UK. Added to that, it's been very dry, no rain to speak of at all. The weather, though, into the weekend is fine, dry and warming up for the time of the year, with a top temperature tomorrow hitting somewhere around 20 degrees Celsius, around 58 degrees Fahrenheit. Then it's gradually settling back down to around 15 degrees towards the middle and end of next week, with a few April showers thrown into the mix, and that will be welcomed by most here as it has been so dry. After that, who knows, but it looks likely the wind will turn back to a northeasterly or easterly breeze, and that will keep a cooler feel to the conditions generally. Well, that's my forecast at least, or rather the BBC's forecast. I'm not going to take all the blame when it all changes again. The big question is, how does that affect our bees? Well, honestly, they'll cope just fine. The bigger issue is how we, the beekeepers, will fare. I'm sure, like me, you've all been out taking a quick look at your colonies and probably, like me, you have something of a mixed bag if you have more than half a dozen hives to check. Interestingly, this year I'm seeing either massive colonies at one end of the spectrum down to a tiny handful of bees in a box barely surviving at the other, not very much in between. So it's the big ones that will be getting everyone talking and obviously everyone worrying about what comes next. Here I'm talking about swarming, and trying to get the timing right so that these colonies can be prevented from swarming, or at least managed in that swarming process at the all-important time. If anyone would like to see the talk that I gave at the Spring Convention, I'll see if I can set up a Zoom session and record it, then get it posted to the Patreon page for you. There's a couple of decent methods of swarm management in that talk that I think work really well. So if anybody would like me to do that, drop me a message, and if I get enough encouragement, maybe I'll make time to do it. Anyway, I digress. Thinking back to the larger colonies that I'm seeing at the moment, we need to do something with them, otherwise there's going to be congestion pretty soon, and that will undoubtedly trigger swarming. Now, these larger colonies are not just confined to full-size hives. What I really mean is colonies that are quickly outgrowing their current boxes. Apart from the full-size colonies that are about to burst out, we have a number of nucleus colonies that are also quickly outgrowing their 6-frame nuke boxes. Both situations will lead to congestion and swarming if I don't act relatively quickly. The larger colonies in the full-size hives are pretty easy to deal with, to be honest. Both situations are pretty easy to deal with, they just need more room. That said, giving more room could mean a couple of different things, and once again I'm suggesting you need to look at the whole situation rather than just adding a queen excluder and supers. First off, what do you intend for your colony? Honey production perhaps, or maybe you want to split it and make one or more additional colonies from it. Perhaps it's simply a Bailey comb change that you have planned, or maybe you're in a national hive and want to set up a double brood system. I can't really see why, but horses for courses, as they say, and in beekeeping you're never wrong. Well, hardly ever. If that's the way you want to keep your bees, then you just go ahead and do it the way you want to. Personally, I'm looking to get my bees off old grotty and odd frames and onto shiny new frames from thorn beehives with lovely fresh new wax. A Bailey comb change would work here, but I don't currently have a Langstroth Bailey board, so I simply add a brood box above the existing brood box and let them get on with it. Honestly, it's not complicated. Right now, there's a really good nectar flow on, so I haven't even added a feeder. Tomorrow, I'll check to see if I've got it right. Once the queen is up in that top brood box and the bees are drawing out plenty of frames, I'll slip a queen excluder in between the two boxes and trap the queen in that top box. That way, the bottom box can develop its brood, see it emerge, and then I can get in there and remove that bottom box of old frames and get them away. Then, potentially, I'll add another brood box of frames with foundation to get an extra box of drawn brood frames above the new one. If I can get that out of them before finally adding a queen excluder to the top, I could then maybe stick a super of drawn comb on top of that and get a late spring box of honey from them. That's the big ones sorted. What about the nukes? These are bursting out of their boxes in some cases. They have maybe 4 or even 5 frames of sealed brood in their 6-frame boxes. And that's going to lead to a massive population explosion in just a week or so. These colonies need to go into full-size hives. For me, the trick is timing it so that we get the sealed brood emerging just at that point of moving them across into the bigger box. That way, we get an immediate increase in workforce to assist with the development of wax foundation into fully drawn comb at the earliest opportunity. With a little luck, and this warmer weather helping out, we should get that brood box drawn out in a week or so. The queen can continue to lay eggs and further develop the brood nest, again increasing the population and building a strong colony for the summer. No sign of any swarm cells as yet, but the drones are now increasing in number, so it won't be long. Now, about that spring convention trip. It is a fair old distance for me to travel from Norwich over to Shropshire, but actually very worthwhile. Held over 3 days, if you're new to the BBKA, new to beekeeping, or just a beekeeping nut, it's an absolute must for the start of the new season. Honestly, I'm not sure how they cope with organising it all. There was something like 25 odd lectures, including mine of course, over 70 seminars, again, my section squares and Ross Round's seminar included, a growing trade show on the Saturday, and an exhibition area for the not-for-profit organisations. This was the 47th year of the Spring Convention, incredibly, and I arrived late on Friday afternoon after a pleasant, if not long, drive. I think these days I just accept that the journey is going to be a long one and go with the flow. Maybe next year I'll drive over on the Thursday and make it a full 3 days instead. As a guest speaker, I couldn't be more grateful to the organisers for making the entire weekend so easy. Accommodation and meals are all provided. Being a university, it's student accommodation, which is perfectly adequate, and the food was actually fantastic. I'd previously always visited as a trade show visitor and hadn't really appreciated all the work that goes on in the background. The sign of a well-organised event is that you don't get to see the military precision that goes on in the background, making sure that we're all given the very best experience, and that was certainly true again this year. The trade show is, perhaps, the best place to head to, particularly if you want to meet up with old friends and have a chat. For me, personally, it is, because most of the beekeepers I wanted to catch up with were manning their own stands within the trade show area. First up were Luke and Susie at Northumberland Honey, a chance to see how the winter was for them and to check in and see what stocks of queens they might have for this year, should I want some. We will be producing a lot of our own queens this year, but you always need a plan B, just in case. Next up was Rebecca and the team at Thorns. They're always so busy, but it was great to catch up and see some of the new products coming along. One in particular, the Trap-X and Bait Pod Hornet Trap combination, looked very interesting, and I'm hoping to get a sample or two for a video in due course. The Trap-X bucket actually looks like it might be very useful when those pesky wasps arrive, becoming a real challenge for us at the fishing lakes later in the year, so I may have to invest in a few. Most of you will know that I have a little niggle about the packaging for section squares from Thorns. Well, they've got a new style box coming along soon with a much larger window to show off the comb, and I'm really looking forward to seeing those when they finally arrive in stock. I did stop by the Oz Armour stand to check out the bee suits and was surprised to see a new crew in charge of UK sales. Unfortunately, none of them are beekeepers, so the issues I had with being stung through the veil last year weren't really easily understood by them, I don't think. I eventually decided to simply buy a couple of extra round veils which are compatible with the zips on the suit and stick with those again for this year. I really like the suit, and actually the price point is great too. Just a shame that they're not beekeepers and understand better the challenges that we face. Then through into the second hall and a chance to stop and chat with my old mate Paul Beardmore from Modern Beekeeping. Seems we're all chasing our tails and spinning plates at this time of the year, and I was amazed at how much Paul actually manages to do. One thing that really caught my eye was a Paradise Honey 6-frame Langstroth poly nuke box. Very similar in features as the BS Honeybees poly nuke for Nationals and 14x12s, and something that I've wanted to find for a while. The Honeypaw nukes are great, but only 4 frames, so these larger nukes might be ideal for overwintering colonies and allowing them a little more room for spring development. I couldn't help myself and purchased a couple, so hopefully they're on their way and we'll be able to use those in a week or two. One of the biggest stands in the hall was the Simon the Beekeeper stand. It seemed to go on and on and on. Not too dissimilar to me, really. And what a queue of beekeepers they had, all grabbing some bargains, I have no doubt. It was great to see them there, actually. There was also a chance to catch up with my old boss from the National Bee Unit, Andy Wattham, the UK's National Bee Inspector, to give him his full title. One interesting comment that Andy made was that the hedgerow flowers seem a little bit behind. Buds at the ready, but not yet in flower. This is the kind of observation we all need to work on, and actually, yes, I agreed. Looking back at our pictures from last year, even the oilseed rape locally to me has been a couple of weeks behind. That's all going to change fairly quickly now as it warms up, so get ready for that. Finally, as I was heading out of the trade show halls, I was greeted by a very smiley person called Natalie, who had a very interesting new entrance design she wanted to show me. So, being the polite kind of chap I am, I thought I'd wander over to her stand and take a look. Well, I have to say I was quite impressed. It's called the Hive 5 Multiguard and seems to be an inventive and practical entrance block that might just solve my honeypot entrance issues. Natalie, very kindly, let me have a couple of samples to bring back and to try out on these honeypot hives, and in return I said that we could have a chat on the podcast about them in the coming weeks. So listen out for that one, but in the meantime I'll pop a link into the podcast notes, along with links to everybody else that I bumped into in the trade show halls. With that done, I was able to get to my seminar and lectures on time. I think they went quite well, and hopefully those beekeepers that attended were able to get something out of them. And finally, my apologies to everyone for Saturday night. It was headlined as a dinner and ceilidh. For those who aren't aware, that's a kind of Scottish and Irish folk music and dance event. I had a very enjoyable dinner with some beekeeping friends and then quietly slipped out of the hall before the dancing began. Sorry to disappoint all of those that were hoping to see me gallop up and down the dining hall. An early breakfast on Sunday, and then it was back on the road to head home and try to remember all the things that I saw and all the promises that I made. Here's to next year, if they'll have me back. Well, that's it for this week. Don't forget to check out my website, www.norfolk-honey.co.uk, and for my latest videos and podcasts with more updates, tips and techniques, it's the same Patreon page, www.patreon.com/Norfolk Honey. And remember, I'm Stewart Spinks, and that was Beekeeping Short and Sweet.